Experiment 3.2. What does soap do to water? What we need for this experiment is we need a bowl of water sitting very still. This particular bowl of water has been sitting out for a while now. And when I put my book on the table, it kind of rippled a little bit. So make sure whatever table you're using, if you're using a countertop, that's probably better because those are more sturdy than regular tables. But don't bump the table. Don't move anything around it because we want it to be as still as possible for this experiment. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to sprinkle the surface with some pepper. Now, for those of you that bought the kit, you have these little packs of pepper here. And so we can use these. We'll open it up and we'll sprinkle it on the top of the water. Now, if you use a small bowl, then this will probably work just fine. But with the size of my bowl, I'm quickly going to run out of pepper before I cover the entire surface, okay? And so that's when you'll have to bring out a bigger supply of pepper. So we want to coat the surface of this water evenly with pepper. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your tweezers and you're going to dip them in the water and make any observations about what happens to that pepper that's on top. So I'm just going to take it, I'm going to dip it in here. And when I move it out, I'll notice that some of the pepper moved a little bit, but only the pepper that was near the tweezers. And in fact, it kind of attracted the pepper a little bit. So I'm going to tear off some paper towel here without trying to disturb my water too much, because I need to wipe off some of that pepper that attracted to my tweezers. All right, now what we're going to do now is we're going to allow the water to come still again if it was moving. Add more pepper if you need to, so that you can see what's... Notice that some of the pepper does sink to the bottom, and that's okay. We're just interested in watching the pepper that's floating on top here. Now what we want to do is we want to take a piece of tissue and we want to wet it with some water. Okay? Don't use this water here. All right, use some other water. And I've got some other water here. And I'm going to... You need about the same size of a wad as the bubble gum. Okay? So if I wad this up, this is going to be a little bit bigger than the bubble gum there. So I'm going to take this facial tissue . Tear it in half, see what that does. I'm going to compare this to the bubble gum, and that's about right. Okay. I need to get this wet. If you have a sink, just put a little bit of water on it. And you'll notice that getting it wet allows it to stick together a little bit better. There we go. Now we're going to take this and we're going to dip it into the water, only about so that half of this facial tissue is in that water. And then take observations as to what happens to the pepper. You'll notice that the pepper moved away. Okay, creates a circle around this. So the tissue paper caused the pepper to move away from it a little bit. Now, next thing we're going to try, we're going to allow the water to become still, and then that area where the pepper left. We're going to sprinkle it back with some more pepper here. Trying to get it even across the top as you can. Now you need to chew your bubble gum. You don't need to chew it very much. Save your wrapper because you will be using this bubble gum in your other experiment. Now, some of you might think it's kind of gross to use chewed bubble gum, but sometimes science is gross. So now we're going to use this, and we're going to submerge this about halfway in the water again. Notice what happens to the pepper. Okay. Now this created a little circle as well. The pepper moved away, but it didn't move as far as the facial tissue. The facial tissue had a big circle. This had a tiny circle. All right, so we'll save that for the next experiment there. Now the next part, we need to cut off a chunk of our soap. About the same size as the gum or the facial tissue there. So it doesn't have to be exact. I've got a knife here. I'm going to cut off the chunk. There we go. Now, notice that my water became unstable there. So I'm going to let it become stable and then also sprinkle the area where the gum was back with some pepper. I'm going to take this and I'm going to submerge about half of this in the water. And again, observe what happens. Okay, it takes a few moments. After a few moments, the soap is really going to push that pepper away. Okay, you're going to get a really big circle out of this, a much bigger circle than the pepper. Remember in the first experiment of this module with the boat, okay, experiment 3.2, where your boat with the soap motor actually went a lot further than the other motors did. And that's because the action of the soap is pushing things away on the surface of the water.